Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar on the Indian water market. Today's webinar is jointly organized by Singapore Water Association and Everything About Water, for short EA Water. SWA was established since 2004. SWA has been instrumental in profiling and promoting Singapore as a pivotal regional hub for all water-related services and technologies. EA Water is India's leading knowledge and marketing solution provider in area of water and wastewater management. Before we kickstart this event, I would like to share with you the following. To ensure better connectivity, please mute your microphone and turn off the camera. You may communicate with us after the event. Please share your questions in the chat, where we will try to provide answers where possible in the Q&A segment. Do identify yourself so we can respond to any unanswered questions. We will be recording this session and reserve the rights to the video. Please complete a post-event survey, which upon return, we will forward the recording and presentation deck to the respondents. And now I'd like to share with you the disclaimers. All information and shared is for general information only and does not contain or convey any legal advice or administrative assistance. Information shared today is true and accurate as for publication date. The organizers and speakers reserve all rights in the provided materials. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Kunal Shah, who is the council member of Singapore Water Association. Mr. Kunal is also the Managing Director for Business Development Energia Singapore. Over to you, Mr. Kunal.
Thank you, Jaswinder. Mr. Hariharan. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to today's webinar, jointly being organized by the Singapore Water Association and Everything About Water from India. Despite the pandemic challenges, SWA has been working very closely with Enterprise Singapore, coordinating in how we can support our members and water companies in Singapore through knowledge sharing, networking opportunities, and partnerships. We are pleased to have amongst us Mr. Hariharan Subramaniam this afternoon to give us an overview of the opportunities, trends, market structure in the Indian water markets, case reference to industrial water and wastewater. Water demand for both municipal and industrial use in India has increased with growing urbanization and industrialization, which presents a great opportunity for water innovation and solutions, especially in terms of processed water, industrial wastewater, wastewater reuse, zero liquid discharge, and other efficient technologies. We hope to create new collaborations across borders, increase Singapore's companies' competitiveness, add value and resilience to the water business while meeting various key stakeholder requirements. Indian water market holds great potential for Singapore water companies to venture into, and we hope that this session will enable to catalyze partnerships and business opportunities. Something about Singapore Water Association for everybody who has joined. Started in 2004, SWA has been providing a platform to build effective networking, facilitate opportunities for collaboration, and foster the exchange of ideas and knowledge among member companies. Our mission is to develop a vibrant and dynamic Singapore water industry with the vision to be the regional hub for all water services and technologies. SWA also actively connects to the global water network through setting up Singapore pavilions at overseas trade shows, overseas missions, and business seminars. Our current 261 members now comprise a diverse mix of both local and international organizations, commercial companies, research institutions, SMEs, and startups, which construes the entire water value chain. COVID is significantly impacting our health, lifestyle, business, and the economy. SWA is working closely with our members to help mobilize, stabilize, and resume operations with our SG United updates, SW Assist, S-Watch initiatives, and regular updates. We also launched the SWA Marketplace Assist platform for our members to seek help from other fellow members or partners and facilitate continuing of the business. More info can be found on our SWA website, or you can contact the SWA office to find out more. SWA is also working with Singapore Business Federation, Enterprise Singapore, Skills Future Singapore, and E2I more in assisting local companies for some job retraining and business creation. Singapore has a great reputation as global water innovation hub, and it was through the leadership from ESG and PUB, as well as various supports initiatives from other government agencies in developing and adopting new technologies. By innovating and generating such new initiatives, we also enable ourselves to move up in the value chain to be leaders, partners, and advisors to businesses and communities in the water cluster. In closing remark, I hope market insights and knowledge shared by everything about water today will be useful, and hope that our members and Singapore partners will be able to take full advantage of this session for their future business endeavors in India. Thank you everything about water and you all for attending today's webinar. Over to you, Jaswinder. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kunal Shah. Now it gives me the pleasure to invite our guest speaker, Mr. Hariharan Subramaniam. Mr. Subramaniam is the editor and chief operating officer of EA Water, to give us an overview on the Indian markets, case studies, expo, and consulting offerings. Over to you, Mr. Subramaniam.
Thank you, Jaswinder, and thank you, Kunal. It's a great pleasure to be present here today. And having visited Singapore many times, I have a deep appreciation of the activities of Singapore Water Association and the spectrum of insights that you provide your members about the water opportunities in Singapore and across the world. Please call me Subu. That's a lot easier. That's what all my friends call me. And in today's session, over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour, I would like to provide you an overview of the market opportunities and challenges in the Indian market for water and wastewater management, and to give some insight in terms of the approaches that can be followed by Singapore companies in order to build their market presence here. I think we have a wide spectrum of companies from Singapore who are attending the session today, some of whom are already having a decent presence in the Indian market or have done business here, and some who are at an initial part of their journey for the Indian market. So I would sort of give you a very basic overview, starting with the lowest denominator, and would be happy to answer any more specific questions that any of you have, either during the session or even later in case we are not able to cover it during today's session. If we can move on to the next slide. So everything about water, as Kunal and Jaswinder briefly mentioned, has been in the space for water and wastewater management for the last 20 years. And somewhat similar to what Singapore Water Association does, we work closely with the Indian government and with the Indian private sector with a large number of industries, helping them to get an understanding on what is happening in the water space. We work very closely with more than around 4,000 water companies in India who are into manufacturing, who are into trading, who are into consulting, and who are into EPC contracting. And we also work closely with the Indian central government and with various state governments, advising them on policy, being present in various advisory panels that they have, working on the regulatory spectrum. And our broad mandate is to look at how we can help promote the latest developments and technologies that are present worldwide to customers in India, both in the government as well as in the private sector. And this, all of these objectives we do through our print magazine. We come out with the only monthly magazine on water in India for the last 18 years, which reaches out to more than around 30,000 readers across India. We also do about 25 to 30 conferences and training programs on water every year. And we also do the largest trade show on water in India, which we have been doing for the last 13 years. And I also regularly consult and advise a large number of international companies and funding agencies who are looking at coming into the water space. So that's our background and our credentials. If we can move on to the next slide, which looks, and so in terms of the services, so knowledge services, advisory services, also helping companies by finding partners, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail at the end of the presentation. So Kunal briefly mentioned in terms of the impact of the COVID pandemic, and in India we are facing the brunt of it. We've been widely affected both in health as well as in economic terms by the pandemic. But perhaps the water sector is one of the best sectors to be present in this space, because both from a government as well as from a private sector point of view, the investments on the water space continue to grow, and we expect the market to bounce back and for there to be significant opportunities in the water space within the next 3 to 6 months kind of a timeline. So looking at the macro fundamentals and parameters of the water sector in India, the underlying theme continues to be the supply-demand gap on water. With about 16% of the total population of the world, India has access to only around 4% of the available water. So the supply continues to be a matter of great concern. And the demand for water, because of increasing population and because of increasing industrial and economic activity, is expected to increase by around 50% in the 25-year period from 2000 to 2025. So the demand for water continues to grow very rapidly. And at the same time, because of significant environmental concerns about wastewater discharge, there is a very healthy regulatory environment currently in India. As of right now, only around 27% of the total wastewater in India gets treated before it is discharged. And there is a drive or an endeavor from the government to look at how this can be significantly increased and how recycling can be built up and scaled up, both for sewage as well as for industrial effluent, in order to be able to take care of the water scarcity which is there for all kinds of non-potable water. So that's the fundamental driver for both the water and wastewater management sectors. The availability of water being low, the demand increasing, and the wastewater environmental concerns being there, because of which a lot of regulatory announcements and activities are being done by the government, creating a bigger demand. If we can move on to the next slide. Like many developing markets, agriculture still continues to be the biggest consumer for water in India. About 80 to 85% of the total water is used in irrigation. Around 10% is used in industrial activity. And again, we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in the subsequent slides. and around 5% gets used for residential requirements for drinking and other requirements within the home. So any endeavor or any activity that looks at better water management in India needs to strike at agriculture and needs to look at how efficiency can be improved in irrigation in order for better utilization of water. We can move on to the next slide. India is also the largest drawer of groundwater in the world. We in fact draw, as per a new UN study that came out a few months back, we draw more groundwater than the US and China put together. And because of that, the groundwater table in India is going down faster and more drastically than perhaps any other region in the world. And that is also, so one, groundwater is going down, there is therefore more energy that goes into pumping water out. At the same time, because of lower aquifers getting accessed, a lot of groundwater contamination is coming to the fore. So whether it is pesticides, whether it is various organic components, whether it is fluoride, arsenic, nitrates, iron, which is a problem in groundwater in different parts of the country. And there is a huge endeavor in terms of drinking water solutions from the government as well as the private sector in this area. If we can move on to the next slide. The increasing demand for water is also leading to a lot of cross subsidization. So like many parts of the world, the residential sector is one which is extremely politically sensitive in a democracy like India. And therefore, most households have water significantly subsidized and them paying a charge for the water, which is many times lower than the cost that is involved in procuring it. And that needs to be obviously cross-subsidized then by industrial and commercial users. So all kinds of industry, hotels, hospitals, and other commercial users spend more for the water, a rate which is 3 to 6 times more than what households are paying. And because of the high cost that they are spending on water, industries and commercial users are extremely receptive for solutions and technologies related to water conservation, related to leakage monitoring, detection and prevention, and related to wastewater reuse and recycle. And the two states of Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, which are perhaps the most industrialized states with a large manufacturing industry present there, and both being in coastal areas, are also the most water stressed regions of the country, with huge demand and huge opportunity for seawater desalination as well as for wastewater recycling. We can move on to the next slide. So what are the opportunities and challenges on the supply side? We spoke about the first three parts in terms of scarcity, the decreasing water quality because of more groundwater depth which is being accessed, as well as a lot of industrial and man-made pollution on surface water, and the cost of fresh water going up, particularly for commercial users. A lot more industrial activity and a lot more complex discharge which are now coming to the fore. So whether it is various kinds of toxic elements in water coming from electroplating or from the mining industry, whether it is in terms of various organic and pesticides because of indiscriminate usage of fertilizers in agricultural activity, as well as due to a lot of unregulated activity, there are challenges on complex discharges from industrial activity and stricter regulations and guidelines which are now coming in, which look at mandating many of them to go in for zero liquid discharge. We can go on to the next slide, which looks at opportunities and challenges on the demand side in the next slide. And there is a significantly higher level of awareness in media, in the social sector, in non-governmental sector, which is creating a drive for commercial users, particularly for multinationals and larger industries, to adopt stricter norms for water and wastewater management and not take a risk in terms of any kind of a deviation, which might lead to either punitive activity from the media or from their consumers, or any kind of activity which affects their public image. The judiciary in India is also extremely active. So there is something called the National Green Tribunal, which is very, very active on environmental matters and has been coming out with various strict guidelines on a regular basis, pushing the governments and the executive to also become more vigilant and become stronger in terms of enforcement of existing guidelines that they are driving. We can move on to the next slide. If one broadly looks at the market and divides it into three aspects in terms of large municipal, which would be typically the metro cities and larger cities, which are relatively better funded. Then you have a large number of smaller towns and villages, which comes as a part of the small municipal market. And then you have the industrial market, which is again quite large in India. And if we look, and as a consultant, if we evaluate each of these markets on various parameters, green being good from an investor or from a market entrant point of view, blue being medium, and red being not so attractive. Our own assessment is that the large municipal market and the industrial markets are both attractive markets for an international investor or an international player wanting to enter into the space, offering good opportunity. We can move on to the next slide. From a market point of view, again, we spoke about how agriculture and irrigation is a large part, but the industrial market and the demand for water there is what is growing fastest. And if you see in the next few years that the share of the industrial demand, which is currently around 5 to 7%, is expected to grow to around 10 to 15%. And industry is also one that is obviously bearing the maximum brunt from the regulatory authorities and is more receptive in terms of usage and spending on newer technologies. And if we can move on to the next slide. When we talk of the industrial market, India is a large industrial hub where all kinds of manufacturing activity is there. So if you look at large industry, India has a number of oil and gas and sector industries and refineries. There's a large mining industry, which includes steel, aluminium, and other metals which get mined. Then you have power as a large sector. The power generation sector is quite large. All of these are large consumers of water. And then when you look at the medium industry again, you have food and beverages, you have textiles. Textile is a large sector in India, the second largest consumer of manpower after agriculture. Then the chemical and pharmaceutical sector again in India is quite large, and there are a large number of players operating, a number of multinationals that have their manufacturing setup in India, and also a fairly vibrant, large Indian-owned manufacturing sector is also present there. And automotive is a big sector in India, growing, a lot of exports happening from here. Then distilleries, then leather tanneries. All of these are large manufacturing industries that are conventionally highly polluting and have a serious drive towards recycling and zero liquid discharge. We can move on to the next slide. In coastal areas particularly, and India has a fairly large coast, so all power plants, oil refineries, many of them which are coming up by force in coastal areas because inland water availability is low. Many of these industries are going in for seawater desalination as the most reliable source. A few months back, we had a large refinery in India called Mangalore refineries, which had to close down for more than a couple of months because they had no availability of water there. So the problem was so acute. And in order to address that and to safeguard the huge investments that they had made there, they are currently building a 60 MLD seawater desalination plant, which is expected to get commissioned by early next year. Many industries have had to cut down their production or have had to close down even in extreme cases because of shortage of water availability. All of these large industries, particularly sectors like refineries, power plants, by force have to go in for zero liquid discharge in order to get the regulatory clearances needed from the industry. Just a couple of weeks back, the Indian government has come out with fresh guidelines on usage of commercial water. They were again forced into it by the National Green Tribunal, which I spoke about, which came out with a guideline last month. And all industries currently, in order for them to use groundwater, have to go and get a no objection certificate and have to go through a environment impact assessment study in order to get the approval. So in case you do not have that, you are then dependent totally on recycling and zero liquid discharge. And you need to look at how you are able to use your water in a more efficient manner and reduce all kinds of leakage and wastage in the water process system. Can move on to the next slide. The building sector is another big area. India has more green buildings than any other country in the world. So whether it is the hospitality sector with large hotel chains, whether it is shopping malls and organized retail, whether it is the hospital sector, whether it is the IT and office building sector, all of them are again going in for strict standards and new technologies related to water conservation, related to sewage recycling, and related to the cooling water system that they are using in their building in order to ensure that the water consumption is as less as possible. We can move on to the next slide. So we picked some big opportunity areas, and these by force are more in the municipal space. The Ganga river cleaning project, which again many of you might have heard of, is perhaps the largest environmental engineering project of its kind in the world, where a long river coast is getting cleaned. This is Prime Minister Modi's pet project, and over the last 3 to 4 years, there has been significant activity. This project is expected to continue for the next 5 years. And a large number of sewage treatment and recycling projects have come up along the river. Large amount of infrastructure is getting created. And many of these projects are under what is called the hybrid annuity model, where the government pays around 40% of the total capex to the private player who's building it, and the balance 60% is paid over 15 years based on performance parameters, 4% per year to the private player. And that again has been a driver towards higher efficiency and better performance on these plants. Because in the past, the government used to be concerned that they're making huge capex, but the operation of and maintenance of these is not happening properly. So the HAM model is one which is getting actively promoted in India in the Ganga river cleaning projects, as well as in other infrastructure water projects that are coming up in other parts of the country. We can move on to the next slide. On the private sector, again, all industries that are along the banks of the river are mandated to go in for zero liquid discharge. Many industries have had to close down because they were not meeting the norms. And all of these industries, as well as the municipal sewage treatment plants, are going in for what is called a continuous monitoring system, online continuous effluent monitoring system, or OCMS, where data from all of these plants goes real time into a server maintained by the Pollution Control Board, which is monitoring both the quantity of the effluent as well as the performance parameters of the effluent which is going into the river. A large project and sewage treatment capacity of around 3,600 MLD is going to get created under this project. We can move on to the next slide. This is a project called Amrut, which focuses on smaller sized towns, typically 500 cities and towns with a population of less than 1 million. And this is around a $11 billion project. This is at its final stage. Most cities are already covered. This project was supposed to get over in 2020, but last month the government has extended the life of this project by 2 more years. Most projects have already been awarded. They are currently under execution, but around 5% more projects are expected to get awarded in the next 3 months. and will be then getting executed. So these include water supply, these include smart metering, and these include wastewater infrastructure that is getting created. We can move to the next slide. This is the new pet project of the government and the Prime Minister, where the mandate is to look at how all households in India get piped drinking water supply by 2024. So when Prime Minister Modi got re-elected in 2019, this was one of the main projects which they had promised. The current level of penetration is 28.5%. A lot of activity has happened in this area in the last 8 to 10 months, and significant volume of investment, around 48 billion US dollars, is getting put into this. And this includes a lot of pipeline and water transportation and distribution infrastructure, a lot of metering, and a lot of water storage infrastructure that is needed for these for this project to get implemented. Next slide. The Smart Cities Mission. Again, the government has identified 100 cities, a combination of both brownfield and greenfield cities that are coming up, and around 6.7 billion US dollars expected to be spent on various areas of infrastructure improvement in these smart cities, including water supply, sewerage management, and smart metering. Already around 8 to 10 projects or cities have already started implementing smart city projects, and this is likely to become more pronounced in the next 1 to 2 years. Next slide. The National Industrial Corridor Development Corporation. So Delhi and Mumbai are the two large cities in India, as many of you would be aware, and a large industrial freight commercial corridor is getting created between the two in order to promote industry and trade. And various smart cities are getting created along this corridor in order to promote industrial investment as well as townships getting built. The first of this, which is at its most active and developed stage, is the city of Dholera in Gujarat, where some infrastructure has already started coming in, and they are currently doing a feasibility study for a 10 MLD seawater desalination plant, which is likely to get enhanced to 50 MLD as more occupancy happens in that area. So in many of these, so Delhi Mumbai is one which is perhaps at its most enhanced level, but other industrial corridors, Chennai Bangalore, Bangalore Mumbai, and Amritsar Calcutta have also started land acquisition and some activity. And in the next 3 to 5 years, as more industrial and economic activity grows, significant investment is likely to happen in these corridors, in turn requiring water and wastewater infrastructure. Next slide. On the area of groundwater, which is a significant area of concern for the government, and the World Bank has also been very active in terms of their investment in this area. So there is something called the Atal Bhujal Yojana, which has just been announced end of last year, which is looking at all aspects related to groundwater management in terms of monitoring, in terms of capacity building, in terms of water security, as well as a lot of data creation, transfer, usage, analytics that goes into usage of groundwater and making operational decision based on that. So this again would be a lot of a significant opportunity for instrumentation companies, monitoring companies, consulting firms, as well as software and analytics companies that are operating in the groundwater space. We can move on to the next slide. So we've spoken about some of the good things in terms of the great opportunities and lots of investments, but there are also a lot of challenges that any player entering into this market needs to be very aware of. The market is extremely fragmented. No player has more than around 4 to 5% of the market share. The market is very fragmented in terms of the applications, in terms of the geography, in terms of the clear water and the wastewater markets being different, the industrial market and the municipal market being different. And therefore, for a player to look at significant size, they will need to partner with multiple players in this space. A lot of the growth is particularly now happening in the tier 2 cities and towns, as the larger cities are seeing overload in terms of presence of players. We can move on to the next slide. We have again spoken of some of these. We've spoken about recycling and desalination being perhaps the two big markets. Community drinking water is another big area where I know some Singapore companies already working, but India is a signatory to what is called the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, which promises 100% access to safe drinking water. So a lot of villages in distant locations, particularly that do not have access to safe drinking water, are going in for community-based schemes, which look at either membrane-based solutions or other solutions for iron and fluoride and arsenic removal. These are more water kiosk-based solutions that are strategically placed based on smart cards or other parameters, allowing people to be able to access safe drinking water 24/7. A lot of this infrastructure, both large and small, that is getting created would require know-how, capability in terms of their operation and maintenance in order to ensure that the assets get properly utilized and monetized. So that's again going to be an area where there is a need for a lot of capacity building on operation and maintenance, as well as the usage of a lot of knowledge management systems to ensure that those are getting better optimally utilized. India is the largest market for decentralized water and wastewater management solutions in the world. In many parts of the country, because the municipal utility is not able to provide safe water, so many industries, many housing societies, many hotels have their own water and wastewater treatment solutions, which would be more packaged or modular units, which will be off-grid. And there is a huge opportunity for packaged and modular skid-mounted solutions there, both on water treatment as well as on sewage treatment. Because of the large population in India, residential is another big market. So point of use, residential water purification and softener units for homes. Packaged drinking water is again, India is the largest market in the world. There are more than around 4,000 manufacturers of packaged drinking water. So large international players like Coke and Nestle and Pepsi are present. And then there are also a large number of Indian small and medium enterprises that are present locally or regionally, providing packaged drinking water, both 1 liter as well as 20-liter jars to households. Next slide, ma'am. So how easy or difficult is it for international companies that are wanting to enter into this space on water? Yeah, so two aspects to it. One, from a customs duty point of view, the customs duty in India has been coming down on all items, including water treatment. If we can move to the next slide. The effective duty on water, after including all the cesses and the countervailing duties, would be in the range of around 31% or so on most water-related products. Some items like pumps have a slightly lower duty, where the effective duty ends up being around 25%. Some items which are specifically notified by the government, either drinking water related or sanitation related, attract a zero customs duty process. India also has a free trade agreement with certain countries, including countries like Japan, Korea, Thailand, and a few others, which allows people to import items from there either at a zero duty or at a reduced customs duty. So the market is fairly integrated with, and there is a strong encouragement for international technologies and products. The customs duty has been coming down, is likely to stabilize at this level. It's not expected to come down further, but will not be going up also. We can move on to the next slide, which looks at how easy or not is it for international companies to come in. So fairly easy. Water falls under what is called the open category. So there are some documentation guidelines that need to be followed in terms of approvals from the Reserve Bank of India and the Foreign Investment Promotion Board. But these are fairly standard in nature. So if you have a chartered accountant or a financial advisor helping you out. They'll be able to take care of all of this. So for any company coming in, either in the form of a joint venture or as a 100% subsidiary that they are trying to create in India, the process is fairly simple and can be done within a period of 2 to 3 months. Next slide. So which are the parts of the country which are relatively more attractive? This is obviously a little bit generic in nature. The answer would perhaps vary depending on the offering and the market segment that one wants to target. But overall, if one looks at, we would advise these 6 states. So the 4 states in southern India, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh, and the 2 states in western India, Gujarat and Maharashtra, are perhaps the 2 states which are relatively more cash rich, where the governments are more progressive and more forward looking, and where a large number of international companies are already present and doing activity. And if one looks at the municipal cities, these are again 6 of the cities which are extremely cash rich because of the revenue streams that they have, and which are more forward looking in terms of newer technologies and best practices in the area of water and wastewater management. Next slide. So this perhaps is the most important slide of the whole presentation. So which are the areas where companies from Singapore have a foothold and have an opportunity in the Indian space? So remember that India also has a fairly large local manufacturing industry. So segments like pumps, pipes, valves, fittings, these are all areas where I would say there is already a fairly competitive, mature manufacturing industry locally present, and therefore it might be very difficult for international companies to be competitive in that space. But these are some of the areas which are attractive, where there is a huge market demand and relatively lower presence of local manufacturing industry. So the competition is often with other international companies and players from other parts of the world. And there is a value or a premium that is attached to good technology, good performance, and good quality. So wastewater treatment and recycling, water quality testing and monitoring, because of so much investment happening, and because of so many projects coming up, there is a requirement for world-class consultants who can do master planning, feasibility studies, DPR preparation, as well as project management consulting. Leakage monitoring, one quick word on that. Still India has more than around 50% of their water as unaccounted for water. So if you take Delhi and Mumbai, around 50 to 55% of the total water supply does not reach the users. It's non-revenue water or unaccounted for water. So huge opportunity there to bring about water conservation and increased efficiency. Sludge is another big area or challenge. So a lot of these wastewater treatment plants are creating large sludge, both municipal sludge as well as hazardous sludge from industries. So disposal, treatment, waste to energy, waste to resources are all areas where there is significant government spending and regulatory drive. Next slide, ma'am. So these are some of the international companies, and these are just a handful of names that I picked up. There are a number of international companies doing well in the water space in India. These are some of the big names, but there are also a number of small companies that in their own niche areas and markets are doing well and have been growing their business significantly, particularly in the last 3 to 5 years. Next slide, ma'am. So how do you go about looking at the market? So there are these large numbers that I have thrown in my presentation in billions of dollars. I think what's important is to identify which segment or market you go after and focus your energies on that instead of getting lost in the big picture. So which are the projects which are coming up, which are the states that have money, which are the customers that are receptive. Finding that right opportunity and focusing your energies on that, I think, is extremely important. And the second most important is to identify the right route to the market. I think having a good partner in whatever form is very, very important. The market in India is somewhat complex. It's large from a geographical distance point of view, from a cultural point of view, from a complexity point of view. So having a partner who is on the same wavelength as you and has a good understanding of the local environment is extremely important for you to be successful. And this partner can again be in the form of a contractor who might be already executing certain projects, and you could offer them your solutions or your technologies as a subcontractor or as a consultant or as a service provider or as a equipment supplier, or finding a partner who is a distributor or a selling partner who can do the initial legwork that would be needed in order to generate the response, the visibility, the inquiry base, which can then be built upon. And then looking at what is the strategy that you want to adopt, how do you want to position, who do you want to compete with, and that becomes extremely important to identify the segment, the strategy, and the opportunity that you want to go after in order to be successful. Lastly, I think you need to be very patient. India is a difficult market. I think we work closely with a number of international companies, advise them on India, and also advise them on a few other markets across the world. And our experience is India is a somewhat difficult market. One needs to be extremely patient. Things take longer here to happen. So one needs to have a longer time frame, typically at least a 3 to 5 year kind of a perspective in mind, and believe that the rewards that will come at the end of that would be well worth that investment of time and effort. Next slide, ma'am. These are some of the large contractors, again, just picking off the top of my hat, some of the large contractors who are already active in India, besides a number of international large contractors like Suez, Veolia, who are IDE and others who are also already active and present in India and doing various government and private projects in the market. Next slide, ma'am. So this is a 5-stage process that we adopt when we work with a number of international companies, and we would be happy to advise and consult anybody who is interested and would like to do more. We also have come out recently, a few months back, with something called India Water Intelligence. This is a tracker of various water and wastewater projects, technologies, and market developments. This is available on a subscription form, on a subscription basis to any company interested. We are happy to share more details and to share some of the earlier issues of the India Water Intelligence. That will give you a good perspective of the kind of projects which are currently getting executed, or the kind of projects which are currently planned and conceptualized by the users, in order to give you an idea of the pipeline that is likely to come up in the next 3 to 6 months kind of a time. Next slide, ma'am. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions either during this presentation or even later in case we are not able to cover it today. And our interest is always to see how newer technologies and best practices in this area are available to users, as I mentioned right at the beginning. And if we can help that process, and if we can help international companies to build their presence in the Indian market, we believe that we will automatically get benefited as a result. So it is with that objective and intent that we are working. And again, I'd like to thank Singapore Water Association for giving us an opportunity to talk to all of you. Thank you.
Big thanks, Mr. Subramaniam. Thank you for sharing with us on these interesting overviews, insights on the opportunities and challenges in the Indian water market. Now we come to the Q&A segment. We have 2 questions for you, Mr. Subramaniam. Okay, the first question is, can you share examples of how enforcement of environmental regulations have changed in India?
Right. So in India, you have what is called the Central Pollution Control Board, which is the Indian equivalent of the Environment Protection Agency, EPA, which is the main policy-making regulatory company that comes out with the stricter guidelines. And then you have state pollution control boards in each state or province, which is actually involved in terms of the implementation of these guidelines. And they are the ones who actually visit users, do the inspections, and provide the necessary clearances or approvals. And then there is the judiciary under what is called the National Green Tribunal, where industries can appeal against guidelines, and public and others who are affected, in case they feel that the current guidelines are not being properly enforced, can go in and appeal in the National Green Tribunal. And there are currently more than around 800 cases which are currently being heard by the National Green Tribunal. And there are umpteen examples of this, Jaswinder, to answer your question. One immediate one I can talk of, I spoke about the guideline related to the commercial water usage. So the Central Groundwater Board, the main Indian government body, had come out with a guideline which looked at how groundwater could be used by various industries, and that was appealed immediately by the environmental lobby. And the National Green Tribunal came out with a ruling last month that all industries need to go in for a no objection certificate from the government in order for them to be able to extract groundwater. What this means is that, one, they would need to follow a more elaborate process, and they would need to show what guidelines they are following for conserving water and recycling water in order to get the approval from the government. They would also often find that it is better for them to use technologies in this area, because the capex that they would be spending in this would more than make up the operating costs that they would otherwise have to incur. Similarly, on the wastewater discharge, taking just one more example, the pollution guidelines in India used to have norms of BOD at 30 ppm and TSS at 50 ppm. The Central Pollution Control Board has come out with a stricter guideline that looks at BOD suspended solid norms of 10 ppm each. And those norms have just come into effect a few months back. So a large number of sewage treatment plants, both industrial as well as private, are going in for upgradation of their existing plants in order to meet the newer discharge norms. And that is creating a great opportunity for contractors and technology companies in that area. So various technologies like MBBR, SBR, and MBR are now becoming a lot more common and popular because of these stricter guidelines that have just come in.
Thank you for the detailed explanation, Mr. Subramaniam. We have one last question. This is quite an interesting question. Okay, for Indian government projects, recent procurement policy announcement seems to focus on Buy India. How should foreign companies address this?
Right. So two answers to this, Jaswinder. So one, a lot of projects in India are funded by multilateral agencies. So there are projects which are being funded by the World Bank, funded by the Asian Development Bank, funded by the JICA, Japanese bank, funded by banks in Europe, and all of them obviously going for global sourcing and tendering. And there, in those, definitely no restrictions are in place. As far as India, so for all of these multilateral projects, you have a large number of bidders from across the world, and there is no distinction or difference in terms of evaluation between Indian and international bidders. As far as projects which are funded by the Indian government, typically these norms in terms of local preferential buying comes into play only for larger projects. So in a lot of smaller projects, there is no difference again from a bidding point of view. Typically, I think the opportunity for most international companies would come in more as a technology partner or as a subcontractor or technology provider. We find very few international companies that act as the main bidder for these projects, because many of these projects have a significant civil scope. So what I would advise, and what I see a lot of international companies already doing, is that they partner with the lead bidder, which could be any of those EPC contracting firms that I had shown in my slide, or many others that are present in the market. So one would need to work with the consultants to ensure that their technology gets specified and they get in the approved make. And then you work and partner with those lead contractors to ensure that you are bidding along with them. That would be the approach that I would recommend. There are also certain areas of working, particularly in, say, sludge, for example, or biological treatment, where there are no Indian manufacturers operating. So by force, it would be only the international companies that would be winning those orders.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Subramaniam. Okay, we're running out of time, so we have two more questions. Okay, the third question, it's do we have any monitoring body which can be viewed publicly? Likewise, we have for air pollution, wherein we can be viewed publicly in India.
So I'm not I am not sure I have understood the question correctly, but as I mentioned earlier, so we have what is called the Central Pollution Control Board. They are the main regulatory body in India, and they provide all of their data on their website. So if one wants to look at, for example, the water quality in different rivers or groundwater sources in various parts of the country, that data is available on their website. I'm not sure if that is what is being asked for. If there is something more specific, the questioning person can reach out to me and I can try to answer.
Okay, sure, yes. We will share your email address and send a question to you. Okay, Mr. Subramanian, one last question. Okay, it says here, do you think the knowledge and skill set of the operators and plant owners needs improvement? I think it could be from technical point of view and also the machineries.
Yes, significantly, I would say. So I think India has gone in for a huge investment on water and wastewater infrastructure in the last 5 to 10 years, and the capability set has not kept pace with that. So I would say, so there is a need for capacity improvement on the design and engineering side. Still, so on the design and engineering side, I would say there are a large number of professionals that are coming through in the space. There, the gap is there; it is getting reduced, but the gap is huge, particularly on the operation and maintenance side. I think there. The government is also extremely aware about it. They are also investing significantly. So all the government projects that are currently funded, around 5 to 10% of the total budget is outlaid on capacity improvement and training of people. There is also a requirement similarly for a lot of monitoring equipment, a lot of remote monitoring solutions in order to ensure that this infrastructure is better operated and maintained. So it's a big area of gap that we see. I think there will be significant investment in that area in the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Once again, thank you, Mr. Subramanian, on answering these questions in detail and giving examples. Any participant have further questions, do email to SWA and we shall get back to you. So I'd like to share with you our next two webinars, which we'll be having. The first one is on the 22nd October. It's the virtual introduction PUB water reclamation process and technology outlook. And the second one will be on the 29th October. It's on the Choa Chu Kang Waterworks. So please look out for our EDMs. Once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Kunal Shah and Mr. Subramanian, and thank you for all your participation and support in this webinar. Please continue to stay safe. Thank you.